Welcome to I Got a Guy podcast, a podcast carefully designed to introduce a wide range of very talented and highly skilled professionals ready to share their knowledge and advice with you. Please welcome the host of I Got a Guy podcast, Michael Drelichars. Welcome to I Got a Guy podcast. I'm your host, Michael Drelichars. Thank you so much for being with us. Really appreciate your loyalty. You're listening to us each and every week. We bring you new listeners and new guests every week. And we do attract new listeners constantly, and we really appreciate that. To our loyal subscribers, we thank you for that. And we appreciate you sharing our shows on your social media platforms and amongst your friends and coworkers, etc. If you are new to I Got a Guy podcast, I encourage you to go to igotaguypodcast.com. That's igotaguypodcast.com for a list of all of our past episodes and a brief synopsis of each one of our shows so you can see which guests we've had and which one makes most sense for you right now. Today, you may want to listen to 2 or 3 different guests, and maybe a few weeks from now, there's other ones that fit a need. The reality is we have awesome guests that provide really good information, and they're all top business people in their fields. So you can rest assured that we have no slouches as guests on our show. These people all know what they're talking about, and they can get the job done for you. So I encourage you to do that. And if you want to be a guest on an upcoming episode of I Got a Guy podcast, there's a contact page on our website. Reach out, give me a quick little synopsis, and we'll connect and we'll have a conversation and see how we can get you in as a guest. So love to have new guests and new business experts on. Never a shortage of topics we can cover. So we're very broadly focused, and hopefully that is very beneficial for all of our listeners. So as you know, this show was born out of a book called The Go-Giver, and The Go-Giver has 5 laws of stratospheric success. And I want to talk about the law of value today, and that's going to marry up with our guest. The law of value is defined by you give more in value than you receive in payment. Give more in value than you receive in payment. And as you get to know and listen to our guest, you'll see how that exactly lines up with what he does each and every day for each and one of his clients. So if you have not read the Go-Giver book, I encourage you to download it on Audible, go to Amazon, go to your local library, borrow it from a friend, however you need to get to it. But read that book. It really, really is a very helpful book talking about how businesses grow through giving referrals. Many people think referral networking is all about getting referrals, but the real truth is you grow your business by giving referrals. And that's one of the reasons why I do this show, because I'm going to give my network of professionals an opportunity to grow their businesses. So that's how it all comes together. But let me introduce our guest this week. We have as a returning guest Neil Schwan from Schooley Mitchell. I've known Neil for quite some time now, several years. Super nice guy and a great business. Neil, thank you for joining us today. Appreciate you being back on the show.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Thank you for having me on again. It's been a little while, and I'm glad to be back. And I too am a fan of the Go-Giver.
Yeah, awesome. Well, yeah, you're a professional networker as I am, so you network in all sorts of different ways, and you know how important it is to growing your business. So you've been a Schooley Mitchell company now for about 3 or so years,
Yeah,
4 years?
Just slightly over 3 years. I'm in my 4th year, and things are going really well.
That's awesome. Yeah. So as a young business, you know how critical it is to prospect constantly. You always have to be looking for new ways to serve people, get your message out. And, you know, Schooley Mitchell, people see the name Schooley Mitchell. They don't necessarily always automatically know what that means. So you got to explain a little bit. And why don't we do that here for our listeners? Explain Schooley Mitchell and tell us all about your business.
Yeah, that sounds good. So Schooley Mitchell Expense Reduction Consulting was founded over 25 years ago. And the name Schooley Mitchell is just the names of the founders. And It is focused on reducing vendor expenses for organizations and companies. It's a franchise model, and I own one of the Chicago franchises here. There's 130 U.S. franchise locations, as well as another 40 or so in Canada. So really good coverage, great company that's been around a long time. And like you mentioned, I've been doing this for going on 4 years. What we do at Schooley Mitchell is, like I said, reduce everyday business expenses for organizations and companies. And we do that by doing three things. So we don't look at a company's P&L statement and dig in and try to tell them how to run their business. They have an accountant or a consultant for that. We're looking specifically at the bills and statements of certain vendor expenses that are important to them. And what we look to do is, like I said, three things. First, we try to recover the misbillings or mistakes that the vendor made in billing them over the last three or so years. And you'd be surprised how often we find mistakes and recover that money back into our client's bank account. The second thing we do is make sure that within their current vendor and their current provider, they're paying what they should. So they're not paying for features they don't want. They're not paying for services that they don't use. And we kind of get that set of parameters all kind of cleaned up so they're paying exactly what they should right now to their incumbent or their current vendor. Then the last thing we do, probably the most important, is we go out to the marketplace and do a full analysis of the marketplace for this service, for their volume and for their needs. Then we come back with a detailed report that shows them multiple options, alternative vendors, as well as changes to their current vendor. And if one of those options saves them money and they choose to go ahead, because they, of course, could choose not to go ahead. But if one of those options saves them money and they choose to go ahead, then we share in a percentage of the savings, which is the coolest thing about this service. If we don't find any savings or the client doesn't like what we've offered, it just doesn't fit their business model, then they don't have to go ahead and there's no fee at all. So it's really kind of a no risk opportunity to take a look at multiple expense areas. The last thing is about 70% of the time, about 70% of the time, our clients don't even change vendors. They stay where they're at a reduced rate.
That's great. And I'm sorry to interrupt you there.
No, it's okay.
So you actually, for those particular categories, you look at the customer's current agreement, understand what they signed for, which may have been a few years in the past. So you look at that agreement, you understand what were the commitments from the vendor and what did they agree to buy. You make sure that they're actually utilizing all those features that they're paying for.
Yep.
And make sure that they're being billed accurately.
Exactly. Yep. And we go through those bills line by line. So we're looking for.
Okay, continue your sentence. Sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, we go through it line by line. So we're looking for even small, mundane mistakes that we can find.
So that's a common, you find common errors with billing, like, even from a big corporations.
It's not on every project, but one that comes to mind is I was working on a project for an organization that had multiple dumpsters and multiple pickups for each dumpster. So they had large facility, a large amount of trash, and they had been billed for multiple years for the wrong size dumpster. They were being billed for a larger dumpster than they actually had. So we recovered the difference for those 3 years. And then, of course, that really motivated that vendor to renegotiate because they had egg on their face. And that really gave us a chance to get in there and to work for new rates and a more favorable contract as well. Not just the rates, but a more favorable contract for the client.
Sure. Well, that is tremendous. That's a tremendous result from doing this analysis. You get a vendor, and it benefits both sides of the equation, right? Certainly the customer benefits because they get a rebate of what they overpaid for. They pay less every month going forward. But then from the vendor side, the vendor doesn't want to lose a customer. We all know how valuable it is to have your set of customers. Nobody wants to lose a customer. So they took the opportunity to fine tune their offering to that particular customer. And maybe, who knows, they may have gone through and fine tuned it for all their customers in an effort to retain their business and be a better vendor. But that everybody wins then.
Yeah, absolutely. The vendor, sometimes people are concerned. They say, well, we have a good relationship with their vendor. Are you really going to twist their arm? Are you really going to stick it to them? That's not really what we do. Of course, we're showing them data the vendors. I mean, we're showing them the data and the market analysis. But like I said, most of the time people stay where they're at. So we're really not sticking it to people. We're just doing the due diligence of looking at what the market should bear, what they should be paying. We're independent and objective. So we're looking at the best way to do it for the client. And that really helps the vendor in the end. If they can come back and provide them the best service at the best price, they're going to end up keeping that client longer.
Yeah, that's significant. And we have the same conversation with our customers. In our business, the GPS tracking business, our customers are oftentimes our contractors or delivery companies. Mm-hmm. Their business is not GPS tracking. The GPS tracking they buy is a tool they use to run their business, to make their business more efficient. But they're in business to hang the drywall or fix the landscaping or replace the plumbing fixtures. Their business is not to worry about the GPS tracking. So they don't have the time in their day to sweat those details. And the months fly by so quickly. If there's a billing error, even if it's off by a little bit, it can really accumulate over time.
Yeah. And you're making it so they don't have to worry about that, right? So they can just run the business.
Yeah. So, and in your case, that's exactly what you do as well. You're there to be able to be a backstop, so to speak, to prevent runaway charges that can drain the cash flow from a customer that doesn't have to be there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's tremendous. You got to feel good about yourself every night when you close up your computer at the end of the day, like, all right, we help some people save some money, help some businesses prosper and thrive. So that's awesome.
It is really fun when you come back and you saved them. Either they didn't think were going to save them anything, or you saved them more than they thought you were going to. It's really fun to see their faces light up, or when the project's all done, to find out what they're going to spend the money on, if they're going to invest it in the company or in the employees or something like that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I can totally concur, and I'm going to share a little story at the end of the episode on the same vein from my own business to kind of wrap it all together. But why don't you tell us, Neil, you have a variety of different categories that you focus in on, right? Why don't you share with us what those categories are, so our listeners can get their arms around that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. The categories that we work in are kind of broad, and there are sometimes some subcategories under them. But the big four that we work on are telecommunications, so that's phone system, internet service, and cell phone. And then credit card processing or payment processing, so credit cards, debit cards, ACH processing, those kinds of fees and services that go along with that. Package shipping, and LTL shipping. So anything less than a truckload. So truckload or less than a truckload shipping, as well as UPS, FedEx, DHL, that type of shipping, and waste removal. So those are kind of the big four. But then we also have had great success in areas like software as a service. So different kinds of software packages that companies have, including e-signature. If you're the kind of company that sends out a lot of documents for e-signature, that's one of the areas we can help in. The compressed gases. So for companies that do food and beverage, that could be nitrogen, oxygen, CO2, that kind of thing. And then in manufacturing, it could be argon gas and acetylene and those kinds of things, and oxygen. So any kind of compressed gas that's delivered to a facility. Fuel, so diesel and gasoline, both card programs, as well as those fuels that are delivered on site. Uniforms and textiles. So, companies that have their employees wear uniforms in a factory or in a service industry, or they need textiles for as a part of their manufacturing or as a part of their business, like linens, that kind of thing, all the way down to the mats that you have in a facility. If you have entrance mats, and those have to be changed and washed and updated with new logos, that kind of thing, that kind of service we can help with. And then also facility supplies. That's kind of the last one. That's a big catch-all, but that is things like the cleaning supplies you might have in an organization, the first aid station, those kinds of things that you get provisioned from a supplier. And that's another area that we can help clients in. And then in all of those, we look at the bills only. We're not looking to, to see into your accounting or your balance sheet. Just looking at the past bills. And sometimes we start with 3 months, and then if we find something and start pulling on a thread, we'll go back longer.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Well, that's a really broad range of categories that so many companies have one or more of those categories in use today. What type of volume do you need in order for it to be prudent for you? You're not necessarily talking about a one employee company. You're talking about more sizable company, right?
Yeah, we're working with companies. I do have a company that's only one employee because it kind of depends on how much you spend. They were running a lot of credit card processing, but generally we work well with companies that are 10 employees or more. That usually means that some of the categories are at that threshold. But we also work with companies. We have some Fortune 500 companies that we work with as well. It really has to do with the volume in a category. That's why I mentioned the one person company. It's very easy for a company to be small and like we have a parts company that's very small and they ship industrial parts. So they charge a lot of credit cards and they ship out a lot of small packages. It's a really good way for us to help them save money that way. But the thresholds for each category are slightly different. But generally, if somebody has 10 employees or more, from a introduction meeting, we'll find out whether or not the categories meet that threshold, whether it makes sense for them to go through the process. And there's usually one or two there's usually more than that, but there's always one or two that makes sense.
So what kind of level do you need on a credit card to make sense?
So for the credit cards, if someone is processing, so not the fees that they pay, but if they're processing $20,000 a month or more on credit cards, that's a pretty low amount. For shipping, if they're spending more than $1,000 on shipping of any kind per month, that's going to be definitely enough to take a look at. Waste removal is really low. If they are spending in an average month, if they're spending $250 or $300 on waste removal, because it's so easy for us to take a look at it. There's no it's not like credit cards where there's all this you call it regulation. There's no regulation, so the minimum is lower. And then some of the other categories, fuel is one of the ones that's higher. Fuel and the compressed gases, those are a little bit higher. Those need to be a spend of more like $10,000 a month or so. Yeah,
it makes sense. How about with the telecom? That seems like it would probably be pretty low.
Yeah, that's really low as well. That's $750. If someone is spending $750 combined on their internet, phone system, and cell phones, it's definitely worth a look. That's a category that people kind of take for granted, but it is really complicated because of how it all works together. And we oftentimes, our average, I think in 23 was 28% on telecom. So pretty significant savings. Yeah. So we can find some good savings when we look at all of them.
If just rounding up to $1,000 a month, if you spend $1,000 a month, you're able to save 28%. That's a sizable savings. For a corporation to realize. And and for so many of these services, they really are commoditized.
Yeah.
So it's got to work the same. Nobody wants to. Well, I would say nobody, but oftentimes people don't want to save money at the expense of lower quality. They want to save some money, but have the same quality service. But so many of these categories are commoditized that you've been talking about here.
Yeah.
Where the service levels is sort of a given.
Yeah.
And now it's okay. How do you maximize that?
Yeah, you bring up a good point. Because we're independent, we don't accept any kickbacks or commissions or even Christmas gifts, even holiday gifts from any of the companies that we might recommend. And that allows us to be completely independent. Our number one goal is to get people to be happy with whatever their new setup is. And it's more important than the savings, really, because we know we're going to find a little bit of savings, but we want to make sure whatever we're offering is of really good, equal or better quality to what they have now.
Right, right. Well, I'm glad you clarified that, because that was one of the topics I wanted to make sure we covered. Is that you don't have any relationships with vendors with which you recommend. In fact, you're
Right.
just the opposite. You are
We have really
distinctly
strong
separate.
relationships with them in that we work with them often, and we sometimes obtain special rates from them, but we don't receive any compensation from them. And that
Zero
allows us to
company.
recommend the right thing for the right client. So yeah, and we are super diligent about that. I mean, it's really core to the
Yeah,
offering that we want
that
our
that is a
clients to
that is a
know that.
fundamental. Yeah, that's part of
Yeah,
your foundation.
right. We want our clients to know, hey, we're showing you these three options, and because we share in a percentage of the savings, certainly one option would benefit us better than the others. But we present it to them and say, this is all up to you. And they're all completely different companies that we have no stake in any of them. So that makes it really nice that clients can sigh of relief and choose whichever one they think is best. No one's pressuring them.
Right. Yeah. There's definitely you are on the side of the client at that point.
Yeah.
You're not. Yeah. So that's really important. Well, these are huge categories that I can see some corporations spending tons of money on to run their business. And right now, with our current economy and inflation where it is, and whether you're hiring minimum wage employees or you have highly seasoned, experienced employees, business costs are keep going up and up and up. And
Yeah.
and business owners can't necessarily raise their fees in conjunction with inflation. So their bottom line is squeezed
Yeah.
significantly. So being able to
Yeah.
save, a couple $100 a month here, a couple $100 there, it really does make a difference.
Yeah, it absolutely does. I know some of the times that I get started with a new client, it's based on an expense that we can't help them with. If they're in the plastics business and the price of resin went up, it's not an area that we have expertise in, and that price is set, on a commodity basis. But it certainly is the reason that they're looking. Like, hey, I've got to blow mold this thing, and my price of resin went up. So they're looking for other areas we can help, and at the end of the day, money is money. So if you get it, if you get it from one area to make up for an increase in another area, it's what you have to do.
Yeah, no, 100%. And ultimately every business has to run as efficiently as they can, especially right now because things are tight. And
Yeah.
so the fact that you have all these categories with which you can help certain businesses, I'm sure many of our listeners either work for or own a business that has probably expressed concern about any of these categories. So I'd love for them to reach out to you and have a conversation. What is it? And this is actually a perfect transition. And we're going to take a break here in a second. I'd like to
Okay.
get your contact information so people can reach out to you. And what does it take for them to get started with you?
Yeah. So my contact information, it's Neil Schwan, and Schooley Mitchell is the company. My email address is neil.schwan@schooleymitchell.com. And you can best reach me at 630-414-2095. As far as what we need to get started is kind of three basic things for each category. Sometimes people will start with a whole bunch of categories at once, and sometimes people say, let's test this out and try it with just one. But the three things that we need is an agreement with us. So people are agreeing that they're going to let us take a look at their expenses, and it's a service agreement. So look at their expenses and look at their bills and that kind of thing. The second thing we need is authorization from them to their vendors. And that's a form we give them that they fill out that we'll show the vendors. And then the vendors will say, okay, you can speak on their behalf. We don't make any changes. So you're not authorizing us to make any changes, just that we can speak on your behalf to ask questions about your setup. We're going to become like an agent for your company. And then the last thing is 3 months of invoices or statements, detailed statements from that vendor. And oftentimes what people will give us is online access. We're, like I said, independent and objective, and we have the highest security. So it's no problem to give us access to the PDFs of your bills. That gives us the chance to go back farther without asking you for more bills. So if we find something in that first 3 months and we have online access, we could go back 4 or 5 years to find out, if you've been taken advantage of for a longer time.
Sure. Okay. Well, that's a good way to start, and so it's not overly complicated for the user to get
It's
started.
probably about 2 hours of one person's time at the company. Pretty minimal. We do a lot of work, but on the client side, they have to do about 2 hours of work just to get us the different pieces and parts of information and answer a few questions.
Yeah, great. Well, I'm going to put your email address and your phone number on the screen for our viewers, because we do publish this on YouTube and Rumble, but we also put it on all the audio platforms. So they'll be able to, for our viewers, you'll be able to see your phone number and your email address. It'll also be in the show notes so that anyone can go back after the fact and grab that information and reach out to you. I do encourage all of our listeners, when you do reach out to Neil, let him know that you heard about him here on I Got a Guy podcast. It's helpful for us to know where our opportunities come from. It's how small businesses grow. So, but start the conversation, have a brief dialogue with Neil, and just see if it's a fit for you or not. And it's a great way to get started. But Neil, we're going to take a short break here. We'll come back, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about some of your successes that you've had, so our listeners can kind of get their arms around it and kind of understand a little bit more in detail. Okay, so stick with us. We'll be back in about a minute or so, and then we'll continue chatting here with Neil Schwan from Schooley Mitchell. Be right back. Thank you for listening to I Got a Guy podcast. I hope you're getting a lot of knowledge from this week's guest. But now a word from our sponsor. If your business uses heavy equipment as part of its daily routine, sadly, I don't need to educate you on the reality that this equipment has been the focus of many local thieves either. Precise Fleet Tracking Solutions works with business owners that own commercial vehicles and heavy equipment. We help these business owners enhance their growth and profit through the use of GPS tracking technology. Recovering a stolen asset is just one way we contribute to the bottom line of the business. Our GPS tracking units used in heavy equipment are weather tight so they can handle the elements and even have an internal battery to continue to report its location should the battery in the asset be disconnected. We have several examples of the benefits of GPS tracking in heavy equipment. Reach out to Precise Fleet Tracking Solutions for a detailed discussion about our options and to see if it makes sense for your business. You can find Precise Fleet Tracking Solutions at precisefleettracking.com. That's precisefleettracking.com. Or call us at 847-865-6008. Precise Fleet Tracking Solutions. GPS tracking made simple. Now, back to the show. Okay, we are back. I'm Michael Drelichars, host of I Got a Guy podcast. Thanks for sticking with us. We appreciate you listening to us again today and watching us on YouTube and Rumble. We are with Neil Schwan from Schooley Mitchell. Neil is owner of Schooley Mitchell here, one of the franchises here in Chicago. They are a cost reduction specialist. Before the break, we talked about all the different categories of savings that they offer companies, should you have need in those different areas. So thanks for sharing all those details, Neil, and thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
Now I want to kind of dive into some more details, some successes that you've had. I know you've had some really amazing successes here, so I'd love to share some of those details, and without sharing any business or any confidential information, just the highlights.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a couple of mine. One that comes to mind right off is working with a commercial construction related company. So they supply the construction industry right on site with large installations. And they came to us because they are growing fast and they were concerned about not being able to keep their eye on the expenses. And they wanted to continue to grow and to turn the money that's coming in to more expansion. So they came to us asking some questions about it. And the first place we started was in their waste removal. Now, for a construction company, you think of at your own office, maybe waste isn't a big expense, but for a construction company, it can be significant. So we worked with them on reviewing at their office or at their plant where they do the manufacturing on their waste removal in a dumpster and recycling, as well as their scrap services. And then for their on-site installations, they have roll-off dumpsters, so large dumpsters that they have delivered and then fill up during the course of a project. And then we were able to combine those projects into one and get multiple quotes and figure out, how they were paying for things and the accessorial fees of picking that stuff up on a regular basis. And for that category, we were able to save them 60% off of what they were spending. And for them, it was very significant. It's really going to change their year for the next 2 or 3 years easily. Because of the success we had with that, they were interested in taking a look at some other categories. So the next thing we looked at was telecommunications, and we took a peek at their phone system within the office at the factory, as well as the internet service that they were getting and the cell phones that they had to communicate with the folks out in the field. So the drivers and the installers and the foremen that were out in the field. And in that category, it's a little bit more complicated than the waste, but we were able to save them around 26%. So a real significant savings there, not the same dollar amount, of course, but a very significant savings there. And then, we did that and they said, hey, you've been so successful so far. What else do you do? And they had quite a number of vehicles. They have a fleet of vehicles. And we took a look at their fuel expense. And they had on-site fueling, and they also had card programs because some of their trips are pretty far away. So they can't fill up. They have to fill up while they're on the road. And in that area, it was a very big expense for them. So our savings percentage wasn't high. It was only about 7%, but it rivals the waste savings in a dollar amount. So it really made a difference in what they're spending on their fleet as far as fuel. And when we combine all that, we're taking a share of that for a limited time, but they're getting the bulk of it. And it's a chance for them to make changes to continue to fuel the expansion with additional savings from all the projects we worked on.
So when you put those three savings together, it was a sizable chunk of money that the business can then reinvest in their business and grow even faster, better, healthier.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well,
I know that they have labor issues like a lot of industrial type companies. And I believe one of the things they were going to do is use some of the savings for sign-on and retention bonuses to get and keep better people.
Right. Well, and then, obviously that fuels a healthier business overall, additionally. So you take a wasted expense and you put it into, compensating good employees, and that's a double win.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a chance to really make a difference in your service and expanding your business while you're improving your service.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Now, how long did you take it to do all this analysis work for these three different categories?
Because that kind of happened in a series. That project was spread out over about 9 months. The initial introduction, is getting in there, kind of understanding their business, understanding what they're doing, and then going out to the marketplace and finding the right solution. And so since that whole process takes about 3 months, but since we kind of did it and proved our concept and they kept adding it on, we did waste and then we did telecom because they liked it. And then we did the fuel later, but it's the kind of thing we could do in a shorter period of time, maybe 3 or 4 months if we did it all at the same time.
And you don't do the analysis yourself personally, right? You have a team of people that crunch the numbers and sort all the details and.
Yeah, absolutely. Schooley Mitchell at the headquarters, they have teams of analysts in each category. So they have a team that just does telecom, and within that team they have internet specialists, document gathering specialists, folks that do the negotiation, folks that are out in the market looking for new vendors and looking for the best deals. That goes into a team and they're working on it. When I say the client only works 2 hours, we're putting in 40 hours or more on a project easily with multiple people working on it.
Okay. But it's not necessarily your staff that's do you or your staff. This is something that you can let the experts focus on because they are well skilled because they do this all day, every day.
That's a good point. The team, they work on these projects and it's what they do all day. So they have a lot of expertise. The other thing is We have a certain level of, I don't know if this has a bad connotation in Chicago, but a certain level of clout with the vendors. So when, if you're calling one of your vendors and you're a medium-sized company and you're calling this large telecom company, and you wait on hold and you get a message and then somebody may or may not call you back. When we call, they know who we are. We have a dedicated rep and they're going to take our call because we're talking to them about 6, 8, 15 clients at the same time. And that really gives us an advantage
Sure.
working with that, like I said, that specialized team in that category.
Sure. And it sounds like you also have some leverage. So you have leverage with the vendors because they know who you are and they know that you know what you're talking about. So the questions are focused and you can kind of get to the nut of it quickly. Or if an average employee who may not have done that task very often, they may not know what questions to ask. And
they may not have the time. If that takes them, if that's a side project for them, get left on hold 3 times and have some emails that are not returned. It's, if you're an accounting professional or an operations manager, it's on to the next. I can't, it's not worth saving, whatever it is. I gotta run this business. So and we have people that they're going to keep working on it until it's done.
Yeah, I totally get that. It makes a lot of sense, and I can see the value in what you're doing there. That makes a big difference. Well, great. What other examples you want to share with our listeners?
Another big success area that we've been working in is the package shipping. So that's UPS, FedEx, DHL, messengers, that kind of package shipping.
Mm-hmm.
And if you watch the news in the last year or year and a half, there has been threat of strikes. There's been layoffs. There's a driver shortage for licensed and qualified drivers. And that whole industry really is in turmoil. Many of the layoffs have been with the kind of middle section. So you're losing the customer service that you used to get or the sales help you used to get. And that's where we can come in. And we've had some really good success helping clients that ship packages on a high volume basis in helping them reduce the rates that they pay, as well as the accessorial fees. So things like pickup charges, fuel surcharges, deliveries to unique locations or to residences, that kind of thing.
Sure.
And then we've also had some really big success in the declared value or the insurance aspect of shipping these packages. It's a chance for folks to make up some of the savings in an area that won't change the quality at all. You're still going to use one of those 3 vendors. Sometimes, or oftentimes, it's a combination. We're not saying switch wholesale from FedEx to UPS or vice versa. We're saying this one type of package to this one area that you ship, 50 times a year, you could save this much if you switched to the other vendor. Those are the kind of things that we help with. Or, if we say we can adjust how you're insuring the product or the package, we can save you a significant amount of money. So that's another area that we've really had some success with across a number of different clients. Many of them are in electronics, so audiovisual companies, telecom companies that are shipping devices, that kind of thing. We've had some really good success in that area because it's high dollar amount packages that are usually going by a guaranteed service that's expedited.
Yeah, no doubt, and I can certainly concur that market, that whole industry, is having some trouble right now. I ship myself.
I bet you have firsthand knowledge of that.
Yeah, I ship on a limited basis, not a ton, but I do ship products out pretty consistently, and it's definitely been a challenge. It is expensive, and it's been a challenge in a number of different aspects. And I've used 2 of the 3 you've mentioned, and I've had issues with both of them, and it's frustrating. But again, I'm a small provider at this point. I'm a small shipper, which is fine with me. But so it's just you kind of have to take your lumps and make the best of it. But for a business that relies on that, for the distribution of their product, and they're sending, dozens of packages a day and, every day, it certainly can add up to be a sizable amount of money, especially in the declared value for electronics and declared
Yeah.
value.
And it can be a big part of the expense, especially when, the market is forced, or some markets are forcing people to include shipping, to make shipping free.
Mm-hmm.
And, even if you're able to mark up the shipping, or not mark up, include the shipping, if you have lower rates, it helps, your quotation or whatever you're competing against if you have lower rates. But if not, if you have to include it, then any nickel you can save on shipping is just, pure profit.
Yeah, no, but most definitely. And like I said, for so many of these businesses, all these categories can be critical foundational pieces of their business. So if you're able to come in there and help them at that level, impact the bottom line, you know, the leadership is forever indebted to you. So it's got to be a rewarding experience for you, and I'm glad that you're in this business and you're able to help so many companies out, and that you've seen nice growth in your business over the last 3+ years, and making it happen.
Yeah. And I really value, our relationship. I know that you do great work, and I appreciate you having me on the podcast.
Yeah,
It's been a good opportunity.
yeah, I think it's awesome, and I want you to share your contact information with our listeners again, here, so they can reach out to you when they have a need.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. If they are interested in just learning more about how we do the process, the auditing process, or the analysis process, I'm always open to a conversation. There's of course no obligation, but my name's Neil Schwan. The company is Schooley Mitchell. And my email address is neil.schwan@schooleymitchell.com. And the best phone number to reach me at is 630-414-2095.
Okay, 630-414-2095 is your cell phone.
That's right.
Call or text?
Call or text. Yeah.
Call or
Either
text.
one.
Okay, that's great. Any other thoughts you wanted to share with our listeners as we start to
It
wrap up?
seems like we really covered a lot of areas.
We did.
Yeah, it's been a good time, and I can't think of anything else to
Yeah. Okay.
bring up at the
Well,
last minute.
that's fine. I want to share, as I mentioned before, I want to share a little story, as I kind of, I always throw a little plug in for Precise Fleet Tracking, which is my day job. This is how we make things happen. But we provide GPS tracking to companies that own commercial vehicles and assets. And we had a client that we brought on board late last year. They were experiencing theft of some assets. And so we went ahead, we got an agreement put in place, and we started the implementation. We started the implementation middle of December, finished most of the installations by Christmas. And I believe the date was the 3rd of January. I got a phone call at 7 o'clock in the morning that a couple of their machines were stolen overnight. And within a couple of minutes, I was able to provide the exact location of those assets that were stolen. They still had stolen 2 assets. One of them happened to have a tracker that we installed just a couple of weeks earlier. We were able to locate the one asset, which was right next to the asset that did not have a tracker in it. Within 10 minutes, the police were on site and they recovered these 2 assets. Now, they replaced these units were older units. They're beat up, a little rusty, little worn out, but nonetheless, they were still operational. But had the customer lost those assets completely and they were never found, they would have had to spend over $72,000 to replace those 2 assets. So we were able to help them recover $72,000 worth of assets before they even received their first invoice from us and paid their first bill. So tremendous return on investment, and the expenses that they spend for the whole year is less than half of that. So tremendous return on investment, and we were able to do it very quickly, and we were very responsive. Again, I got a text from my contact at 7:08 a.m. By 7:12, that we knew where they were. By 7:18, the police were on site and they recovered those assets. So, we're a very responsive organization, very focused on helping our customers impact their bottom line. And so whether it's saving fuel or knowing where their drivers are or knowing helping the police recover a stolen asset, it all contributes to the bottom line, just like what you do, Neil, every day.
Yeah.
You help their bottom line.
You know what's impressive about that is the fact that you did it so quick. And I know some insurance policies cover this, but they probably didn't miss more than a day of work with those assets, right?
Yeah,
I mean, if you
they
miss
were
a
back.
week of, if you miss a week and you still recover it, or a month or a year, or you have to file a claim and then buy new equipment, all the time you don't have those assets, you're not billing.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
was fast.
productivity loss. Yes. Yeah, they
Yeah.
had them back in their shop within an hour. They had them loaded up on a flatbed and back in their shop within an hour or so. And so it's helpful, it's rewarding, and the fact that our technology works so well, and we at Precise Fleet Tracking are very focused on serving those clients. I was thrilled to be able to provide that value, and the customer is very appreciative of that. But again, I wanted to make sure I paralleled that story, because it dovetails directly with what you're talking about, and you did talk about on the show, because you're able to help these businesses really impact the bottom line. Any business
Yeah.
that doesn't have to spend 20, 30, 40,000 or $72,000 on stuff that was not necessary. In the
Right.
case, my example was stolen. In your case was just, in so many cases, it's just errors in billing.
Right.
That's wasted money, and you don't have to. If you don't have to do that, why would you?
Yeah,
So that's
absolutely.
and just like in your case, I feel very, very proud of what we are able to do, and
Yeah.
so look forward to
It's
doing
got to
that
make
with
you feel
more.
good at the end of that day, right? It's like it's all worth it after that
Absolutely,
day.
absolutely. Customers very happy and still very happy, and we're growing along with them. So it's a great win. But if just to kind of finalize that thought about Precise Fleet Tracking, if you have a business and you're concerned about theft of assets, reach out to Precise Fleet Tracking Solutions. You can get to us at precisefleettracking.com. That's precisefleettracking.com, or call us at 847-865-6008. 847-865-6008. We'll have a conversation and see if we can help. So thanks for letting me throw that story in. Again, I thought it was a good dovetail with all that you were talking about, Neil. And I think that's one of the reasons that we have such a great relationship, and because we think
Yeah.
alike, and
Yeah.
and
And
we share similar successes.
yeah, very cool to hear that story. You
Yeah,
never want somebody's stuff to get stolen, but that's a great ending to it.
yeah. And I hate the fact that there's so much theft going on, at least here in the Chicagoland area. A lot of theft of stuff, of assets and vehicles, and we have solutions to help. I am very passionate about doing what we can to stop this lawlessness going on, and
Yeah.
it's really critical. So if you have any concerns, even if it's a personal vehicle, reach out to Precise Fleet Tracking. We can help. So all right, well, let's wrap up the show here, Neil. Any last thoughts?
No, just thank you so much for having me. This is always a good time. Normally we do this in private at Portillo's or at a restaurant. So it was fun to do it on video and share it with your
Yeah,
whole audience. So thanks a lot.
exactly. I enjoy that as well. And but thanks for being a guest this week. And we hope that plenty of our listeners will reach out to you and see how you can help their businesses, and have the similar successes. So again, to our listeners, thank you, and encourage you to stick around, stay tuned, and we'll have another episode coming up next week. So make it a great week, and we'll talk to you all very soon. Take care. Thank you for listening to I Got a Guy podcast. For past podcasts and more information, go to igotaguypodcast.com. That's igotaguypodcast.com. Please share this podcast on your social media feeds, and tune in again next week to I Got a Guy podcast.